This girl, her name is Sarah. She completely destroyed her life in just 8 hours and found herself in an empty apartment, and her boyfriend was gone without goodbye, no confrontation, no second chances. Just silence that would haunt her for months. Hi, I'm Emma, your storyteller, and today I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything you think you know about love, betrayal, and consequences. My name is Sarah, I'm 28 years old, and 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was living with my boyfriend Marcus in a beautiful apartment downtown. We'd been together for 3.5 years, and honestly, I thought we were heading toward marriage. But sometimes, the life you think you're living isn't the life you're actually living at all. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember the exact date because it's burned into my memory. March 15th. I had left early that morning for what I told Marcus was a work conference in the city. The lie rolled off my tongue so easily, so naturally, that it scared me even then. The truth? I was meeting someone else. His name was David, and he worked for a client company that had been collaborating with my marketing firm for about 3 months. David was everything Marcus wasn't in that moment of my life. Where Marcus had become predictable, David was exciting. Where Marcus was comfortable, David was thrilling. Where Marcus felt like home, David felt like an adventure. I know how that sounds. I know exactly how selfish and horrible that makes me appear. But I need you to understand the headspace I was in back then. Marcus and I had fallen into this routine that felt more like roommates than lovers. He'd come home from his accounting job, we'd eat dinner while watching Netflix, maybe have a conversation about our days, and then we'd go to bed. Rinse and repeat, 5 days a week. Weekends were slightly better, but even those had become predictable. I felt invisible in my own relationship. David noticed me in ways Marcus had stopped noticing. He complimented my ideas during meetings. He asked follow-up questions about things I mentioned in passing. He remembered details about my life that even Marcus sometimes forgot. The emotional affair started first. Long coffee meetings that had nothing to do with work, text messages that made my heart race, late-night phone calls when Marcus was asleep beside me. For weeks, I told myself it was just friendship, just someone who understood me. But I knew I was lying to myself. The physical relationship began that Tuesday in March. David had booked a hotel room under the pretense of having a quiet place to work on our project. I knew what I was walking into. I knew exactly what was going to happen, and I made the choice to go anyway. That afternoon changed everything, though I wouldn't understand how much until later. I remember feeling this intoxicating mix of guilt and excitement as I drove home to Marcus that evening. I had rehearsed my story about the conference, prepared answers to questions he might ask, even picked up coffee from a shop near the supposed conference location as evidence. But Marcus barely looked up when I walked through the door. "How was your day?" he asked absently, scrolling through his phone. "Fine," I replied, and that was it. No follow-up questions. No curiosity about my supposed important work event. Nothing. In that moment, I felt justified in my betrayal. See, I told myself, he doesn't even care enough to ask details. The affair continued for 2 months. 2 months of secret meetings, stolen moments, and elaborate lies. I became an expert at deception. I learned to change my perfume before coming home, to clear my browsing history, to create fake calendar entries for work events that didn't exist. I thought I was being so careful. I thought I had covered every track, anticipated every question. I was so wrong. So, the morning that changed everything started like any other Wednesday. Marcus had already left for work when I woke up. I had a late start that day, which wasn't unusual for my flexible schedule. I took my time getting ready, even texted David about meeting later that week. I had no idea that would be the last normal morning of my old life. When I came home that evening around 6:30, I immediately sensed something was different. The apartment felt too quiet, too still. Usually I could hear Marcus moving around, maybe music playing, the sounds of someone living in the space. But there was nothing. "Marcus?" I called out, setting my purse down by the door. "Are you home?" Silence. I walked toward our bedroom, my heart starting to beat a little faster. Maybe he was napping? Maybe he had earbuds in? I pushed open the bedroom door and froze. His side of the closet was completely empty. Not just missing a few items, completely, utterly empty. The dresser drawers that held his clothes were pulled open and vacant. His nightstand was cleared of everything personal. His charging cables, his reading glasses, the book he'd been halfway through. I ran to the bathroom. His toothbrush was gone. His shampoo, his razor, his cologne, all of it vanished. It was like someone had surgically removed every trace of Marcus from our shared life while I was at work for 9 hours. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I opened our text thread and typed frantically, "Marcus, where are you? What's happening? Please call me." The message showed as delivered, but no response came. I checked Instagram, Facebook, all our usual social media haunts. Nothing. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. I couldn't find his profiles anymore. I searched for his name, scrolled through mutual friends' followers lists. Nothing. He had blocked me on everything. In the span of one workday, Marcus had completely erased me from his digital existence and physically removed himself from our shared life. I started calling our friends, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to sound as panicked as I felt. "Hey, have you talked to Marcus today?" I asked his college roommate Jake. "No, why? Is everything okay?" "I'm sure it's fine," I lied. "He's just not answering his phone and I wanted to make sure he wasn't sick or something." But Jake's tone was strange, careful, like he knew something I didn't. I tried 3 more mutual friends. Same response, polite concern, but something underneath that felt like they were holding back information. By 10 p.m. that night, I was having a full panic attack. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. The apartment felt enormous and empty around me. I kept walking from room to room, looking for some clue, some explanation, some note that would make sense of what had happened. There was nothing. That first night was the longest of my life. I probably slept 2 hours, and even then, it was fitful and filled with anxiety dreams. I kept waking up expecting to find Marcus beside me, for this whole thing to have been some kind of nightmare. But morning came, and his side of the bed was still empty. The second day was worse. I called in sick to work. There was no way I could function normally when my entire world had just imploded. I spent the morning calling Marcus's family. His sister Lisa was kind, but firm. "Sarah, Marcus is fine. He's safe. But he asked us not to discuss his situation with you right now." "What situation?" I pressed. "Lisa, we've been together for over 3 years. I deserve to know what's happening." There was a long pause. Then, "I think you need to talk to Marcus about that, when he's ready." But Marcus wasn't taking my calls, wasn't responding to my texts, had disappeared as completely as if he'd never existed in my life at all. By the third day, I was desperate. I started driving to places I thought he might be. His office, his favorite coffee shop, the gym he sometimes went to. I felt like a stalker, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed answers. I needed to understand how 3.5 years could just evaporate without explanation. It was on the 4th day that I got my first real clue about what had happened. My best friend Melissa showed up at my door with coffee and a very serious expression. "We need to talk," she said, settling onto my couch. "And I need you to be completely honest with me." My heart started racing. "About what?" "Sarah," she said gently, "is there anything you haven't told me about your relationship with Marcus? Anything that might explain why he left so suddenly?" The way she asked the question, so careful, so loaded, told me everything I needed to know. Somehow Marcus had found out about David, but I wasn't ready to admit it yet. Not out loud, not even to Melissa. "Everything was fine between us," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I mean, we had normal relationship issues, but nothing that would cause this." "This is insane, Mel. People don't just disappear after 3.5 years without a conversation." Melissa studied my face for a long moment. "Marcus came to see me yesterday," she said finally. My blood turned to ice. "What?" "He asked me to check on you. Make sure you were eating, sleeping, taking care of yourself. He was worried about how you were handling everything." "What did he tell you?" I whispered. Melissa reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She opened it to a text thread and handed it to me. The messages were from Marcus. Screenshots of hotel receipts, credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to with him. And then, at the bottom, a series of text messages between David and me that I thought I had deleted. Explicit messages about meeting up, about the things we did together, about how much I enjoyed sneaking around behind Marcus's back. I felt like I was going to vomit. He hired a private investigator, Melissa said quietly. After he started suspecting something was going on. Sarah, he has photos of you and David together. He has documentation going back 2 months. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hands. How long? Melissa asked. How long were you cheating on him? The word cheating hit me like a physical blow. Even though I knew that's what it was, hearing it said out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. 2 months? I whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. Melissa closed her eyes. Sarah, how could you do this? Marcus worshipped the ground you walked on. And that's when I finally broke down completely. All the justifications I'd built up in my mind, all the ways I'd convinced myself that my actions were understandable given the state of my relationship, it all crumbled in the face of Melissa's disappointment and Marcus's methodical, devastating evidence of my betrayal. I felt invisible. I sobbed. He stopped seeing me, stopped appreciating me. David made me feel special again. So you threw away 3.5 years for that? Melissa asked, not unkindly, but with genuine confusion. You threw away a man who loved you, who was planning to propose to you? My head snapped up. What? He was going to propose, Sarah. He'd already bought the ring. He showed it to me last month, asked for advice about how to do it. He was planning something special for your anniversary next month. The room started spinning. Marcus was going to propose. While I was sneaking around with David, planning my next lie, my next betrayal, Marcus was planning our future together. The guilt was overwhelming, but underneath it was something even worse. A crushing sense of loss that I was only now beginning to understand. Over the next few weeks, the full extent of what I'd destroyed became clear. Marcus hadn't just left me. He'd systematically informed our entire social circle about what had happened. Not vindictively, not to humiliate me, but to explain his sudden disappearance from their lives. One by one, our mutual friends reached out to me. Some were kind but distant. Others were openly angry. How could you do this to him? Asked Jenna, who had been in our friend group since college. Marcus is one of the best guys I know. He didn't deserve this. You made us all worry about him, said Tom, Marcus's work friend. We thought something terrible had happened. Turns out something terrible did happen. You. The isolation was crushing. Suddenly, the social life I'd taken for granted was gone. Events I would have been invited to, group chats I would have been included in, casual hangouts that had been part of my routine, all of it disappeared. Even at work, things changed. David, who had seemed so charming and exciting during our affair, became awkward and distant once he realized the full consequences of what we'd done. The thrill was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable awareness that we'd destroyed real lives for temporary pleasure. This is getting too complicated for me, he told me during what would be our last private conversation. Maybe we should cool things off for a while. And just like that, I lost both relationships. The man I'd betrayed and the man I'd betrayed him with. 3 months after Marcus disappeared from my life, I was sitting alone in our apartment, now just my apartment, when I got a call from his sister Lisa. Sarah, I think you should know, she said carefully. Marcus is seeing someone. My heart stopped. What? Her name is Rebecca. She's a teacher at the elementary school where he volunteers. They've been dating for about a month. A month? Marcus had been gone for 3 months, and he was already with someone new. While I was still sitting in the ruins of our shared life, he had moved on completely. Are they serious? I asked, hating myself for needing to know. Lisa paused. He seems happy, Sarah. Happier than he's been in a long time. That night, I broke my own rule about social media stalking and looked up Marcus's accounts. He'd unblocked me, or maybe created new profiles. Either way, I found what I was looking for. Photos of him with a woman who was everything I wasn't. Where I was sharp and ambitious, she looked soft and nurturing. Where I was often dressed for success, she seemed comfortable in casual clothes and genuine smiles. Where I had been secretly living a double life, she looked like someone who was exactly who she appeared to be. In every photo, Marcus looked relaxed and genuinely happy in a way I couldn't remember seeing during the last year of our relationship. The realization hit me like a truck. He was better off without me. All this time, I'd been waiting for him to come back, to give me a chance to explain or apologize or fix what I'd broken. But the truth was, there was nothing to fix. I hadn't just damaged our relationship, I had revealed something fundamental about who I was. Someone who could lie to the person who loved me most. Someone who could prioritize my own immediate gratification over years of shared history and future plans. Marcus hadn't left because he was hurt or angry, though I'm sure he was both. He'd left because he'd finally seen who I really was, and he'd decided he deserved better. And he was right. 4 months after Marcus disappeared, I made a decision that surprised even me. I wrote him a letter, not a text, not an email, but an actual handwritten letter that I mailed to his sister's house, figuring she could decide whether or not to give it to him. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't beg him to come back. I didn't try to explain or justify what I'd done. Instead, I did something I should have done months earlier. I took complete responsibility for my choices and their consequences. I wrote, "Marcus, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. I'm not writing this because I expect anything from you, not forgiveness, not a response, not a second chance. I'm writing this because there are things I need to say, and you deserve to hear them. What I did was inexcusable. Not because our relationship was perfect. No relationship is. But because instead of talking to you about the problems I was feeling, I chose to lie to you for 2 months. I chose to betray the trust you'd given me freely for 3.5 years. I chose to risk everything we'd built together for something temporary and meaningless. I can't take those choices back, and I wouldn't insult you by asking you to pretend they didn't happen. I've spent the last 4 months trying to understand how I became someone capable of doing what I did. I've been going to therapy, trying to figure out why I thought I deserved to have everything, the security of our relationship, and the excitement of something new, without considering what it would cost you. I want you to know that your decision to leave was the right one. Not just for you, but for both of us. You deserve someone who chooses you every day, who doesn't look for excitement in other people when things get routine. You deserve someone who communicates with you instead of lying to you. I see from mutual friends that you're happy now. I'm glad. You deserve that happiness, and I'm sorry it took losing you for me to understand how much you deserved it all along. I won't contact you again. This isn't the beginning of some campaign to win you back. This is just me acknowledging the truth about what happened, and telling you that I take full responsibility for ending the best thing that ever happened to me. I hope someday I can become the kind of person who would never do to someone else what I did to you. Take care of yourself, Marcus. You were too good for me, and I hope you found someone who's worthy of how good you are." I mailed the letter and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not happiness, I wasn't ready for that yet, but a kind of quiet acceptance of reality. A week later, Lisa called me. "He read your letter," she said simply. "He asked me to tell you that he hopes you find what you're looking for." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't hatred either. It was acknowledgement, and somehow that felt like enough. 6 months after Marcus disappeared from my life, I was finally ready to disappear from his. I moved to a different city, took a job with a company that had been courting me for months, and started the long, difficult work of becoming someone I could respect. I still think about Marcus sometimes. Wonder if he and Rebecca are still together, if he's proposed to her, if he's found the happiness with her that he'd been looking for with me. I hope he has. I genuinely hope he has. As for me, I'm learning to live with the consequences of my choices. I'm learning to be alone without feeling desperate for external validation. I'm learning to communicate honestly about my needs, instead of seeking fulfillment outside my relationships. Most importantly, I'm learning that some mistakes can't be fixed. They can only be learned from. The woman who cheated on Marcus doesn't exist anymore. She died in that empty apartment 4 months ago, killed by the weight of her own choices. Who I am now is someone who has to live with what she did, but who is determined to never be that person again. Marcus was right to leave. He was right to move on. He was right to find someone who would choose him every single day without hesitation. I wasn't that person then. But maybe someday I can be that person for someone else. This story haunts me because it shows how quickly we can destroy the things that matter most to us. Sarah lost everything. Her relationship, her friends, her sense of self, because she made choices that prioritized short-term excitement over long-term love. but there's something powerful in her eventual acceptance of responsibility. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is admit that we were wrong, that we caused our own pain, and that the people we hurt were right to protect themselves from us. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share this video with friends who might need to hear this message about choices and consequences. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with more powerful stories like this one. I'm Emma, and I'll see you in the next story. Remember, the choices we make in secret have a way of reshaping our entire lives. Choose wisely.